I've been keeping a secret for 3 weeks, and today I finally have the proof. It started with a single blueberry muffin. I left it on the kitchen counter, went to bed, and when I woke up, the muffin was gone. But that's not the weird part. In its place was this tiny, shimmering trail of what looked like stardust. My parents told me it was just spilled sugar, but I knew better. Normal sugar doesn't glow in the dark, and it definitely doesn't smell like enchanted cinnamon. So I decided to turn my kitchen into a high-security lockdown zone. I spent an entire afternoon setting up what I called the fairy trap. I laid down a ring of honey around the muffin tray, thinking I could catch some tiny footprints. Then, I tied a series of little bells to the muffin tin with dental floss. Any movement, and ding ding ding, I'd have them. I even wore my tactical night vision hoodie because, as every big kid knows, you can't catch a magical creature if you're dressed like a civilian. The stage was set, the muffins were baited, and all I had to do was wait for the clock to strike midnight. The first there was a total bust. I was sitting there in the dark, staring at my monitor, feeling like some kind of high-tech detective. But the only thing I caught on camera was my cat, Mittens. Trying to lick the honey trap, I had to shoo him away without making a sound. The second hour was even worse. I accidentally dozed off and had this bizarre dream that a giant baguette was chasing me through a forest. Don't ask. When I woke up, it was 3 a.m. The kitchen was dead silent. But something just felt different. I crept over to the counter, and my heart just dropped. They had done it again, but this time they outsmarted me. They didn't just bypass my honey pit. They had built a tiny, perfect bridge over it using toothpicks. And my alarm bells? They had tied them all together with another piece of floss so they couldn't make a sound. It was like they were mocking me. They even left a tiny note written in flour on the counter that just said, "Nice try, kid." That was it. No more playing nice. I knew right then it was time to bring out the big guns. The next night, I went all out. I got my hands on a 4K Ultra HD motion sensor stealth camera. Tiny, silent, and it sees everything. I hid the new camera inside an empty cereal box, poked a tiny, almost invisible hole for the lens, and aimed it right at the muffin tray. I double-checked the angles, made sure the motion sensor was calibrated, and then I waited. And that, guys, is when I captured the footage that is about to change everything. At exactly 3:14 a.m., the kitchen light didn't just flicker, it pulsed like a soft heartbeat. Watching the playback later gave me chills. You can see the air start to shimmer right above the fruit bowl, like heat rising off the pavement. Then, out of nowhere, they appeared. But they weren't the tiny, sparkly pixies you read about in storybooks. Oh no! These guys were like a tiny special ops team. I started calling them the Muffin Militia. They had on tiny goggles made from grape skins and wore capes made from dried basil leaves. I was watching, completely frozen, as they used my whisk as a giant carnival ride. They were swinging on it to build up speed and launch themselves onto the muffin tray. It was incredible, and they weren't just eating the muffins, they were upgrading them. One fairy was using a toothpick like a magic wand, making the sprinkles on a muffin dance and rearrange themselves into new patterns. Another one was abseiling down from the cabinets on a long strand of my sister's embroidery thread, carrying a single, perfect raspberry. This wasn't theft. It was the most organized, high-stakes baking operation I had ever seen in my life. I couldn't just sit in the shadows and watch anymore. This was my moment. I took a deep breath and stepped out from my hiding spot into the kitchen. For a split second, time just stopped. A dozen pairs of tiny, glowing eyes all snapped to look straight at me. I thought they would vanish in a puff of glitter, but they didn't. The leader of fairy wearing a crown made from a soda can tap just crossed his little arms and pointed one tiny finger right at the sink. He wasn't scared. He looked annoyed. It turns out my whole detective operation, the honey traps, and bells had been seriously getting in the way of their midnight shift. So we spent the next hour negotiating. We sat at the kitchen table, me on a chair, and them on a stack of cookbooks, and worked out a peace treaty. I promised to stop setting traps and to leave out what we now call a sacrifice bowl of sprinkles and brown sugar every Friday. In return, they promised to let me document their work and maybe, just maybe, let me taste one of their enchanted creations. After we shook on it, well, I shook his tiny hand with my pinky finger. He offered me a piece of a militia muffin. And I'm telling you, it tasted like a fireworks show in my mouth. It was warm and sweet and zingy all at once. I felt like I could jump over the moon. It was the best muffin I have ever had, and probably ever will have. So, the Muffin Fairies are real. They are highly skilled engineers, and they are definitely better at baking than I am. I've officially joined their secret society as an associate human chef, which basically means I do the heavy lifting with the flour bags while they handle all the magic. It's a pretty sweet deal. But here's the thing, and this is where it gets even crazier. As I was packing up my cameras today, I noticed another trail of glitter. This one wasn't stardust. It was finer, almost like soap bubbles. And it wasn't near the pantry. It was leading away from the kitchen and toward the bathroom. So now I'm wondering, does this mean there are toothpaste trolls? Or maybe soap spies? I don't know yet, but you better believe I'm going to find out. My next investigation starts tonight. So if you see a few unexplained sparkles in your kitchen, don't just clean them up. Leave a muffin out and wait. And whatever you do, keep your camera rolling because our houses are a lot more alive than we think. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you on the next stakeout.